wide-ranging study to investigate the emotional and creative effects of this mushroom pill. Leary's timing couldn't be better. Albert Hofmann, the chemist who discovered LSD, has recently learned how to synthesize psilocybin.
He thought of himself as an ambitious scientist. He thought he'd found a substance that would allow him to change behavior. And that was really his main interest as a psychologist. Not just understanding people, but in taking somebody who was deeply disturbed or deeply unhappy and fundamentally changing their behavior.
In 1961, Leary gives psilocybin to convicts as part of an experiment to reform them.
I remember him saying, let's see if we can turn the convicts into Buddhas by giving them this profound religious experience, insight, and maybe they will change their way.
The experiment takes place at the Massachusetts Correctional Institute in Concord, where psilocybin is given to 32 inmates. The hope is that the drug will alter their personalities, so that once they're released from prison, their recidivism rate will go down. Leary and his group often take the drug with the prisoners, acting as guides through the process. In the short term, only 25% of those who take the drug return to prison, as compared to the normal rate of 80%. But some critics dispute the results because Leary gets involved in the ex-convicts' lives, unintentionally skewing the outcome.
It was learned that after they did get out, Leary and his graduate students helped get them jobs. The rather extraordinary results of the prison project were generally criticized on that factor.
In early 1962, the British writer Aldous Huxley meets a researcher who has been experimenting with LSD and sends him off to introduce Leary to the powerful hallucinogen.
He felt that he had merged with the Godhead, that he had seen the light, and that it was his job now to turn on everybody, to turn on the whole world so that they could share this wonderful experience.
Suddenly he was not talking about making convicts better citizens. He was talking about changing the whole religious, political, cultural structure of the United States.
Leary is no longer a passive scholar. He is now the voice that articulates the psychedelic vision. He is on a path that will make him the leader of a revolution.
So he had charisma to burn. He was an Irish philosopher, poet who had an incredible gift of oratory. He was one of the most brilliant speakers, and there would be kind of an almost electrical charge in the room as he would talk about that, and almost like a mystical experience would occur right there and then, even just through his talking about it. A large crowd of people who would be eating out of his hand.
Everything you've heard about the dangers of LSD is an outright hoax and a lie. LSD is not as dangerous as color television.
Championing this new cause turns Leary into a celebrity.
He always intimated that he was not comfortable with it, but I think he was very comfortable with it. I think that he enjoyed the attention, the adulation. He enjoyed the fact that the rich and famous were calling him up and wanting to come and experience these substances. Even the famous poets like Allen Ginsberg. He really felt that he was moving into a much hipper crowd.
Aldous Huxley is also an LSD advocate, but his philosophy is much different than Leary's. Huxley believes the drug should only be in the hands of the best and the brightest, that it may be too much for the masses. Leary disagrees. He thinks a wide range of people should sample it.
He was very clear, including in testimony to Congress, that there should be some kind of a preparation, there should be some kind of registration or licensing process for drug use, just like there is for driving a car. That you had to have the knowledge and demonstrate that you had knowledge and responsibility.
Few listen to Leary's warnings, but millions tune in to his intriguing description of the LSD experience. The floodgates are starting to open. Across the country, people are beginning to experiment with the drug, particularly those living in college communities. Many serious LSD researchers fear Leary's message could open up Pandora's box.
Tim was approached by many, many people who are using LSD in the psychedelic therapeutic community and basically told to tone it down. You know, keep a lower profile. You're going to blow it for everyone. But he was so convinced that he had found the answer that he didn't listen.
Leary's rebellious streak makes him in many ways his own worst enemy. When criticized, he often says something outrageous just to provoke a reaction.
If I were to say, ladies and gentlemen, there's a level of reality which is invisible to the naked eye, but which has a lawfulness and a beauty of its own, you'd consider me to be an eccentric.
His new notoriety and accusations of sloppy research compel Harvard to rein him in. In the spring of 1962, Leary is ordered to give up his legal supply of psilocybin, and by the end of the year, the psilocybin research project is terminated. A year later, Leary is officially relieved of his teaching duties. Upon leaving Harvard, he says, "It's as unfair to expect a university to sponsor research on visionary experience as it would be to expect the Vatican to support research on effective aphrodisiacs." Leary and his followers need a place to continue their research. They are thrown out of Mexico and the Caribbean islands of Dominica and Antigua because of the growing notoriety associated with LSD. After 3 months of searching, they are offered use of the immense Millbrook estate in Dutchess County, New York. It is the property of heirs to the Gulf oil fortune.
Peggy Hitchcock was a close friend of Leary's, and her two brothers, Billy and Tommy, owned this place, and they lived in a mansion on another part of the estate, and they gave us the mansion free, basically a tax write-off for them.
Millbrook was one of the great house parties of the 20th century. Some research was going on, but increasingly, probably due to its proximity to New York and also to the kind of word of mouth that was spreading the word about LSD, more and more beautiful people, jet setters, began making their way there.
At Millbrook, Leary moves further away from his role as a serious academic and into that of the high priest of LSD. Soon, he's chanting his own mantra.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
When we continue, a young writer named Ken Kesey creates a traveling psychedelic circus and takes a new generation on an LSD road trip.
In a few months, Ken Kesey probably turned on more people than the CIA, the psychotherapeutic community, and Tim Leary did in 10 years.
Elsewhere in the world in 1963, in Switzerland, the pharmaceutical laboratory Roche introduced Valium. In London, cabinet officer John Profumo was forced to resign because of a sex scandal. And Russia's cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman to go up in space. History's Mysteries will return on the History Channel. We now return to Getting High, the history of LSD.
In the early 1960s, Timothy Leary is making headlines on the East Coast, while writer Ken Kesey is blazing his own LSD trail in the West.
Kesey was a classic American hero in many ways. He was a small-town boy, athlete, but also an intellectual. He was a wrestler. He went to Stanford writing program, wanting to become a novelist.
Kesey is introduced to psychedelics when he volunteers as a subject for drug experiments being conducted at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital near San Francisco. Poet Allen Ginsberg later tells him the tests were for the CIA.
And I get psilocybin, I get cannabinol, I get mescaline. Later, Ginsberg says, "Don't you know this is the CIA?" I thought, "Oh, Ginsberg, you're being your usual paranoid Jew." He says, No, it's the CIA. This stuff wasn't being given to us to help cure insanity or to help these people that are in the nut house. This is being given us to help the CIA figure out what good it was. Does it make you stronger? Does it make you fiercer? Does it make you break down and tell the secrets? What does it do that the CIA could use?
Intrigued by the experience, Kesey volunteers as a night attendant in the psychiatric ward of the hospital. Psychedelic drugs are readily available there, and he takes them while on duty. Kesey's experiences at the hospital inspire him to write a novel, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He claims the drugs enhanced his creativity.
I would have not been able to write that well without LSD. There's something about seeing a reality with a new light shined on it that goes right from your eyes to your fingertips.
Like Timothy Leary, Kesey becomes a total convert to the drug and its power. He starts spreading the word by turning on his friends.
They became known as the pranksters, who also began taking LSD with him.
I didn't feel that it was right for it to be contained by the CIA and the Vets Administration doctors. Those are not the right people to administer a psychedelic.
Kesey's merry pranksters take their show on the road in a psychedelic bus. They throw wild parties and turn on thousands of people with their LSD-laced punch. Kesey calls the events acid tests.
The idea is you go, you take LSD, you have a great time, presumably, or maybe sometimes you have some weird experiences. But if you are able to endure that kind of excitement and commotion and the music and the strobe lights and the body paint and this whole environmental theater that you were going through, then you pass the acid test.
Kesey's advocacy of LSD pushes even Leary's ideas about popular use of the drug to their limits.
In a few months, Ken Kesey probably turned on more people than the CIA, the psychotherapeutic community, and Tim Leary did in 10 years. So in many ways, he just took the volume and cranked it up, which is what was happening in the 60s all over the place.